All right, now we welcome Dr. Farhang Nurrahman. He is an economics and international professor at the University of Houston, Victoria, and the former dean of the business school there. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I wanted to dive into a very important topic, one that may be at the top of people's minds, minimum wage. As we see many other states in our nation raise their minimum wage. For example, in California, we are seeing fry cooks make $21 an hour, which I imagine can be very frustrating for a Texan to see, while they're not making anywhere near that per hour. Here in the state of Texas, minimum wage remains at $7.25?
That's correct.
Why do you think that is?
Well, the minimum wage has been established by federal government at $7.25. There are some states, 34 states and districts and municipalities that have raised the minimum wage above 7.25. Wage, just like any other price, depends on demand and supply, demand for workers and supply of workers. And when we talk about minimum wage, we're talking about unskilled workers, with people with low level of education, perhaps high school or less. And so when there is a possibility that there are plenty of people looking for work, it makes sense to keep the wage at the market level where demand and supply meet. Minimum wage being set is when it's above equilibrium, where the market clears. So there are cities that high cost of living, like in Boston or Seattle or cities in California, the cost of living is higher, and therefore, in order to maintain a subsistence level of income for individuals, those states have initiated to increase minimum wage above the federal law. In the state of Texas, we still keep it at $7.25.
And how are these employers able to sustain that? Suddenly you're a business owner and you need to start paying your staff almost more than twice as much.
That's correct. Well, that's the debate between those who are critical of minimum wage versus those who are pushing for higher minimum wage. The idea for increasing minimum wage is to increase their subsistence level of income for people to have an income which is really helping them to pay for their expenses, whether it's housing, transportation, food, grocery, healthcare. So at $7.25, if you work for 40 hours a week, you will be making just a little bit over $15,000. That is below the poverty level of almost $16,000 in 2023.
That's $15,000 a year?
A year. If you work for 40 hours at the minimum wage, that's what you make, just a little bit over $15,000, which is below poverty line. So those who are pushing for higher minimum wage is to help people to have a higher level of income, which they argue it's good because the more income people have, they have higher disposable income, they're going to spend it, therefore demand is going to go up, and therefore more goods and services are going to be produced. On the other hand, those who are critic, they claim that this idea of increasing minimum wage could result in more unemployment, because when you have minimum wage that goes up, employers may not hire as many people, especially mom and pop stores or shops that could not afford paying higher minimum wage. So that's the argument that's being made against minimum wage, that it could result in unemployment, or in fact it may drive some of the business out of business if they can't afford paying that higher minimum wage.
So it's important just to watch the trends closely as perhaps Texas increases their wage, but it could be a way to make themselves more marketable to business owners.
That's a possibility, but normally people who have the mobility and the ability to move from one job to another or from one state to the other, they obviously command higher wages. When we're talking about minimum wage, these are people that there are plenty of them available and there is a lot of competition, and for them it's not that easy to say, I don't want to live in Texas with minimum wage of $7.25 and go to California or Massachusetts or Oregon. So for that reason, it's possible to maintain that minimum wage at $7.25 that we have in Texas. In fact, there are some states that they don't have any minimum wage. Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, South Carolina, Tennessee don't have minimum wage, and employers are obligated to follow the federal law of paying $7.25.
Wow. Well, I really enjoyed having you and your depth of knowledge here on the show. Dr. Nurrahman, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, coming up, don't go anywhere. We learn about the Alzheimer's Association and a special event they have coming up right here in Victoria.